Section 23 of the Art of Cookery made plain and easy by Hannah Glasse. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Chapter 9, Part 5, for Lent or a fast dinner. From To Fry Artichokes. First blanch them in water, then flour them, fry them in fresh butter, lay them in your dish and pour melted butter over them. Or you may put a little red wine into the butter and season with nutmeg, pepper and salt. A white fricassee of mushrooms. Take a quart of fresh mushrooms, make them very clean. Cut the largest ones in two. Put them in a stew pan with 4 spoonfuls of water, a blade of mace, a piece of lemon peel. Cover your pan close and stew them gently for half an hour. Beat up the yolks of 2 eggs with half a pint of cream and a little nutmeg grated in it. Take out the mace and lemon peel. Put in the eggs and cream, keep it stirring one way all the time till it is thick. Season with salt to your palate. Squeeze a little lemon juice in, butter the crust of a French roll and toast it brown. Put it in your dish and the mushrooms over. Note well, be careful not to squeeze the lemon juice in till they are finished and ready to put in your dish. Then squeeze it in and stir them about for a minute, then put them in your dish. To make buttered loaves. Beat up the yolks of 12 eggs, with half the whites and a quarter of a pint of yeast. Strain them into a dish. Season with salt and beaten ginger, then make it into a high paste with flour. Lay it in a warm cloth for a quarter of an hour. Then make it up into little loaves, and bake them or boil them with butter, and put in a glass of white wine. Sweeten well with sugar, lay the loaves in the dish, pour the sauce over them, and throw sugar over the dish. Broccoli and eggs. Boil your broccoli tender, saving a large bunch for the middle and 6 or 8 little thick sprigs to stick round. Take a toast half an inch thick, toast it brown, as big as you would have it for your dish or butter plate. Butter some eggs thus. Take 6 eggs, more or less as you have occasion, beat them well, put them into a saucepan with a good piece of butter, a little salt. Keep beating them with a spoon till they are thick enough, then pour them on the toast. Set the biggest bunch of broccoli in the middle and the other pieces round and about, and garnish the dish with little sprigs of broccoli. This is a pretty side dish or a corner plate. Asparagus and eggs. Toast a bit of bread as big as you have occasion for. Butter it and lay it in your dish. Butter some eggs as above, and lay over it. In the meantime, boil some grass tender, cut it small, and lay it over the eggs. This makes a pretty side dish for a second course or a corner plate. Broccoli in salad. Broccoli is a pretty dish, by way of salad in the middle of a table. Boil it like asparagus. In the beginning of the book you have an account how to clean it. Lay it in your dish, beat up with oil and vinegar and a little salt. Garnish with nasturtium buds. Or boil it, and have plain butter in a cup. Or farce French rolls with it, and buttered eggs together for a change. Or farce your rolls with mussels, done the same way as oysters, only no wine. To make potato cakes. Take potatoes, boil them, peel them, beat them in a mortar, mix them with the yolks of eggs, a little sack, sugar, a little beaten mace, a little nutmeg, a little cream or melted butter. Work it up into a paste. Then make it into cakes, or just what shapes you please with moulds. Fry them brown in fresh butter. Lay them in plates or dishes. Melt butter with sack and sugar, and pour over them. A pudding made thus. Mix it as before, make it up in the shape of a pudding and bake it. Pour butter, sack and sugar over it. To make potatoes, like a collar of veal or mutton. Make the ingredients as before. Make it up in the shape of a collar of veal, and with some of it make round balls. Bake it with the balls, set the collar in the middle, lay the balls round. Let your sauce be half a pint of red wine, sugar enough to sweeten it, the yolks of 2 eggs, beat up a little nutmeg, stir all these together for fear of curdling. When it is thick enough, pour it over the collar. This is a pretty dish for a first or second course. To broil potatoes. First boil them, peel them, cut them in two, broil them till they are brown on both sides. Then lay them in the plate or dish and pour melted butter over them. To fry potatoes. Cut them into thin slices as big as a crown piece, fry them brown, lay them in the plate or dish, pour melted butter and sack and sugar over them. These are a pretty corner plate. Mashed potatoes. Boil your potatoes, peel them and put them into a saucepan, mash them well. To 2 pounds of potatoes, put a pint of milk, a little salt. Stir them well together, take care they do not stick to the bottom. Then take 1/4 pound of butter, stir it in and serve it up. To grill shrimps. Season them with salt and pepper, shred parsley, butter, in scallop shells well. Add some grated bread and let them stew for half an hour. Brown them with a hot iron and serve them up. Buttered shrimps. Stew 2 quarts of shrimps in a pint of white wine with nutmeg. Beat up 8 eggs with a little white wine and half a pound of butter, shaking the saucepan one way all the time over the fire till they are thick enough. Lay toasted sippets round a dish and pour them over it. So serve them up. To dress spinach. Pick and wash your spinach well. Put it into a saucepan with a little salt. Cover it close and let it stew till it is just tender. Then throw it into a sieve, drain all the liquor out, and chop it small, as much as the quantity of a French roll. Add half a pint of cream to it, season with salt, pepper and grated nutmeg, put in 1/4 pound of butter, and set it a-stewing over the fire 1/4 hour, stirring it often. Cut a French roll into long pieces, about as thick as your finger, fry them, poach 6 eggs, lay them round on the spinach, stick the pieces of roll in and about the eggs. Serve it up either for supper or a side dish at a second course. Stewed spinach and eggs. Pick and wash your spinach very clean. Put it into a saucepan with a little salt. Cover it close, shake the pan often. When it is just tender, and whilst it is green, throw it into a sieve to drain. Lay it into your dish. In the meantime, have a stew pan of water boiling. Break as many eggs into cups as you would poach. When the water boils, put in the eggs, have an egg slice ready to take them out with, lay them on the spinach, and garnish the dish with orange cut into quarters, with melted butter in a cup. To boil spinach when you have not room on the fire to do it by itself. Have a tin box, or any other thing that shuts very close. Put in your spinach, cover it so close as no water can get in, and put it into water, or a pot of liquor, or anything you are boiling. It will take about an hour if the pot or copper boils. In the same manner, you may boil peas without water. Asparagus forced in French rolls. Take 3 French rolls, take out all the crumb, by first cutting a piece of the top crust off, but be careful that the crust fits again in the same place. Fry the rolls brown in fresh butter. Then take a pint of cream, the yolk of 6 eggs beat fine, a little salt and nutmeg, stir them well together over a slow fire till it begins to be thick. Have ready 100 of small grass boiled. Then save tops enough to stick the rolls with. The rest cut small and put into the cream. Fill the loaves with them. Before you fry the rolls, make holes thick in the top crust, and stick the grass in. Then lay on the piece of crust and stick the grass in, that it may look as if it were growing. It makes a pretty side dish at a second course. To make oyster loaves. Fry the French rolls as above. Take half a pint of oysters, stew them in their own liquor, then take out the oysters with a fork, strain the liquor to them, put them into a saucepan again with a glass of white wine, a little beaten mace, a little grated nutmeg, 1/4 pound of butter rolled in flour. Shake them well together, then put them into the rolls. And these make a pretty side dish for a first course. You may rub in the crumbs of 2 rolls and toss up with the oysters. To stew parsnips. Boil them tender, scrape them from the dust, cut them into slices, put them into a saucepan with cream enough. For sauce, a piece of butter rolled in flour, a little salt, and shake the saucepan often. When the cream boils, pour them into a plate for a corner dish or a side dish at supper. To mash parsnips. Boil them tender, scrape them clean, then scrape all the soft into a saucepan. Put as much milk or cream as will stew them. Keep them stirring, and when quite thick, stir in a good piece of butter and send them to table. To stew cucumbers. Pare 12 cucumbers and slice them as thick as a half crown. Lay them in a coarse cloth to drain, and when they are dry, flour them and fry them brown in fresh butter. Then take them out with an egg slice, lay them in a plate before the fire, and have ready 1 cucumber whole, cut a long piece out of the side, and scoop out all the pulp. Have ready fried onions peeled and sliced, and fried brown with the sliced cucumber. Fill the whole cucumber with the fried onion. Season with pepper and salt. Put on the piece you cut out and tie it round with a pack thread. Fry it brown, first flouring it, then take it out of the pan and keep it hot. Keep the pan on the fire, and with one hand put in a little flour, while with the other you stir it. When it is thick, put in 2 or 3 spoonfuls of water and half a pint of white or red wine, 2 spoonfuls of ketchup. Stir it together, put in 3 blades of mace, 4 cloves, half a nutmeg, a little pepper and salt, all beat fine together. Stir it into the saucepan, then throw in your cucumbers, give them a toss or two, then lay the whole cucumbers in the middle, the rest round, pour the sauce all over, untie the cucumbers before you lay it into the dish. Garnish the dish with fried onions and send it to table hot. This is a pretty side dish at a first course. To ragout French beans. Take 1/4 peck of French beans, string them, do not split them, cut them in 3 across, lay them in salt and water, then take them out and dry them in a coarse cloth. Fry them brown, then pour out all the fat. Put in 1/4 pint of hot water, stir it into the pan by degrees, let it boil. Then take 1/4 pound of fresh butter rolled in a very little flour, 2 spoonfuls of ketchup, 1 spoonful of mushroom pickle, and 4 of white wine, an onion stuck with 6 cloves, 2 or 3 blades of mace beat, half a nutmeg grated, a little pepper and salt. Stir it all together for a few minutes, then throw in the beans. Shake the pan for a minute or 2, take out the onion and pour them into your dish. This is a pretty side dish, and you may garnish with what you fancy. either pickled French beans, mushrooms, samphire, or anything else. A ragout of beans with a farce. Ragout them as above. Take 2 large carrots, scrape and boil them tender, then mash them in a pan, season with pepper and salt, mix them with a little piece of butter and the yolks of 2 raw eggs. Make it into what shape you please, and baking it 1/4 hour in a quick oven will do, but a tin oven is best. Lay it in the middle of the dish and the ragout round. Serve it up hot for a first course. Or this way, beans ragout with cabbage. Take a nice little cabbage, about as big as a pint basin. When the outside leaves, top and stalks are cut off, half boil it. Cut a hole in the middle pretty big. Take what you cut out and chop it very fine, with a few of the beans boiled, a carrot boiled and mashed, and a turnip boiled. Mash all together, put them into a saucepan, season them with pepper, salt and nutmeg, a good piece of butter, stew them a few minutes over the fire, stirring the pan often. In the meantime, put the cabbage into a saucepan, but take great care it does not fall to pieces. Put to it 4 spoonfuls of water, 2 of wine, and 1 of ketchup. Have a spoonful of mushroom pickle, a piece of butter rolled in a little flour, a very little pepper. Cover it close and let it stew softly till it is tender. Then take it up carefully and lay it in the middle of the dish. Pour your mashed roots in the middle to fill it up high, and your ragout round it. You may add the liquor the cabbage was stewed in and send it to table hot. This will do for a top, bottom, middle, or side dish. When beans are not to be had, you may cut carrots and turnips into little slices and fry them. The carrots in little round slices, the turnips in pieces about 2 inches long and as thick as one's finger, and toss them up in the ragout. Beans ragout with parsnips. Take 2 large parsnips, scrape them clean, and boil them in water. When tender, take them up, scrape all the soft into a saucepan, add to them 4 spoonfuls of cream, a piece of butter as big as a hen's egg, chop them in a saucepan well, and when they are quite thick, heap them up in the middle of the dish, and the ragout round. Beans ragout with potatoes. Boil 2 pounds of potatoes soft, then peel them, put them into a saucepan, put to them half a pint of milk, stir them about, and a little salt. Then stir in 1/4 pound of butter. Keep stirring all the time till it is so thick that you cannot stir the spoon in it hardly for stiffness. Then put it into a halfpenny Welsh dish, first buttering the dish. Heap them as high as they will lie, flour them, pour a little melted butter over it, and then a few crumbs of bread. Set it into a tin oven before the fire, and when brown, lay it in the middle of the dish. Take great care you do not mash it. Pour your ragout round it, and send it to table hot. To ragout celery. Wash and make a bunch of celery very clean. Cut it in pieces about 2 inches long. Put it into a stew pan with just as much water as will cover it. Tie 2 or 3 blades of mace, 2 or 3 cloves, about 20 corns of whole pepper in a muslin rag loose. Put it into the stew pan, a little onion, a little bundle of sweet herbs. Cover it close and let it stew softly till tender. Then take out the spice, onion and sweet herbs. Put in 1/2 ounce of truffles and morels, 2 spoonfuls of ketchup, a gill of red wine, a piece of butter as big as an egg rolled in flour, 6 farthing French rolls. Season with salt to your palate, stir it all together, cover it close, and let it stew till the sauce is thick and good. Take care that the roll do not break. Shake your pan often. When it is enough, dish it up and garnish with lemon. The yolks of 6 hard eggs or more put in with the rolls, will make it a fine dish. This for a first course. If you would have it white, put in white wine instead of red, and some cream for a second course. To ragout mushrooms. Peel and scrape the flaps. Put a quart into a saucepan, a very little salt, set them on a quick fire, let them boil up, then take them off, put to them a gill of red wine, a quarter of a pound of butter rolled in a little flour, a little nutmeg, a little beaten mace, set it on the fire, stir it now and then. When it is thick and fine, have ready the yolks of 6 eggs hot and boiled in a bladder hard. Lay it in the middle of your dish and pour the ragout over it. Garnish with broiled mushrooms. A pretty dish of eggs. Boil 6 eggs hard, peel them and cut them into thin slices. Put a quarter of a pound of butter into the stew pan, then put in your eggs and fry them quick. Half a quarter of an hour will do them. You must be very careful not to break them. Throw over them pepper, salt and nutmeg. Lay them in your dish before the fire. Pour out all the fat, shake in a little flour, and have ready 2 shallots cut small. Throw them into the pan, pour in a quarter of a pint of white wine, a little juice of lemon, and a little piece of butter rolled in flour. Stir all together till it is thick. If you have not sauce enough, put in a little more wine. Toast some thin slices of bread cut 3-corner ways, and lay round your dish. Pour the sauce all over, and send it to table hot. You may put sweet oil on the toast, if it be agreeable. Eggs à la tripe. Boil your eggs hard. Take off the shells and cut them long ways in 4 quarters. Put a little butter into a stew pan, let it melt, shake in a little flour, stir it with a spoon, then put in your eggs, throw a little grated nutmeg all over, a little salt, a good deal of shred parsley. Shake your pan round, pour in a little cream, toss the pan round carefully that you do not break the eggs. When your sauce is thick and fine, take up your eggs, pour the sauce all over them, and garnish with lemon. A Fricassee of Eggs. Boil 8 eggs hard, take off the shells, cut them into quarters, have ready half a pint of cream and a quarter of a pound of fresh butter. Stir it together over the fire till it is thick and smooth. Lay the eggs in the dish and pour the sauce all over. Garnish with the hard yolks of 3 eggs cut in 2 and lay round the edge of the dish. A Ragout of Eggs. Boil 12 eggs hard, take off the shells, and with a little knife very carefully cut the white across long ways, so that the white may be in 2 halves and the yolks whole. Be careful neither to break the whites nor yolks. Take a quarter of a pint of pickled mushrooms chopped very fine, half an ounce of truffles and morels boiled in 3 or 4 spoonfuls of water. Save the water and chop the truffles and morels very small. Boil a little parsley, chop it fine, mix them together with the truffle water you saved. Grate a little nutmeg in, a little beaten mace, put it into a saucepan with 3 spoonfuls of water, a gill of red wine, 1 spoonful of ketchup, a piece of butter as big as a large walnut rolled in flour, stir all together and let it boil. In the meantime, get ready your eggs. Lay the yolks and whites in order in your dish, the hollow parts of the whites uppermost, that they may be filled. Take some crumbs of bread and fry them brown and crisp, as you do for larks, with which fill up the whites of the eggs as high as they will lie, then pour in your sauce all over, and garnish with fried crumbs of bread. This is a very genteel, pretty dish, if it be well done. To broil eggs. Cut a toast round a quartern loaf, brown it, lay it on your dish, butter it, and very carefully break 6 or 8 eggs on the toast, and take a red-hot shovel and hold over them. When they are done, squeeze a Seville orange over them, grate a little nutmeg over it, and serve it up for a side plate. Or you may poach your eggs and lay them on a toast, or toast your bread crisp and pour a little boiling water over it. Season with a little salt, and then lay your poached eggs on it. To dress eggs with bread. Take a penny loaf, soak it in a quart of hot milk 2 hours, or till the bread is soft, then strain it through a coarse sieve. Put to it 2 spoonfuls of orange flower water or rose water. Sweeten it, grate in a little nutmeg, take a little dish, butter the bottom of it, break in as many eggs as will cover the bottom of the dish, pour in the bread and milk, set it in a tin oven before the fire, and half an hour will bake it. It will do on a chafing dish of coals. Cover it close before the fire, or bake it in a slow oven. To farce eggs. Get 2 cabbage lettuces, scald them, with a few mushrooms, parsley, sorrel, and chervil. Then chop them very small, with the yolks of hard eggs, seasoned with salt and nutmeg. Then stew them in butter, and when they are enough, put in a little cream, then pour them into the bottom of a dish. Take the whites and chop them very fine with parsley, nutmeg, and salt. Lay this round the brim of the dish, and run a red-hot fire shovel over it to brown it. Eggs with lettuce. Scald some cabbage lettuce in fair water, squeeze them well, then slice them, and toss them up in a saucepan with a piece of butter. Season them with pepper, salt, and a little nutmeg. Let them stew half an hour, chop them well together. When they are enough, lay them in your dish, fry some eggs nicely in butter, and lay on them. Garnish with Seville orange. To fry eggs as round as balls. Having a deep frying pan and 3 pints of clarified butter, heat it as hot as for fritters, and stir it with a stick till it runs round like a whirlpool. Then break an egg into the middle, and turn it round with your stick till it be as hard as a poached egg. The whirling round of the butter will make it as round as a ball. Then take it up with a slice and put it in a dish before the fire. They will keep hot half an hour and yet be soft, so you may do as many as you please. You may serve these with what you please, nothing better than stewed spinach, and garnish with orange. To make an egg as big as 20. Part the yolks from the whites, strain them both separate through a sieve. Tie the yolks up in a bladder in the form of a ball. Boil them hard, then put this ball into another bladder and the whites round it. Tie it up oval fashion and boil it. These are used for grand salads. This is very pretty for a ragout. Boil 5 or 6 yolks together and lay in the middle of the ragout of eggs, and so you may make them of any size you please. To make a grand dish of eggs. You must break as many eggs as the yolks will fill a pint basin, the whites by themselves. Tie the yolks by themselves in a bladder round, boil them hard. Then have a wooden bowl that will hold a quart, made like 2 butter dishes, but in the shape of an egg, with a hole through one at the top. You are to observe, when you boil the yolks, to run a pack thread through and leave 1/4 of a yard hanging out. When the yolk is boiled hard, put it into the bowl dish, but be careful to hang it so as to be in the middle. The string being drawn through the hole, then clap the 2 bowls together and tie them tight, and with a funnel pour in the whites through the hole. Then stop the hole close and boil it hard. It will take an hour. When it is boiled enough, carefully open it and cut the string close. In the meantime, take 20 eggs, beat them well, the yolks by themselves and the whites by themselves. Divide the whites into 2, and boil them in bladders the shape of an egg. When they are boiled hard, cut one in 2 long ways and one crossways, and with a fine sharp knife cut out some of the white in the middle. Lay the great egg in the middle, the 2 long halves on each side with the hollow part uppermost, and the 2 round flat between. Take an ounce of truffles and morels, cut them very small, boil them in half a pint of water till they are tender. Then take a pint of fresh mushrooms, clean picked, washed and chopped small, and put into the truffles and morels. Let them boil, add a little salt, a little beaten nutmeg, a little beaten mace, a gill of pickled mushrooms chopped fine. Boil 16 of the yolks hard in a bladder, then chop them and mix them with the other ingredients. Thicken it with a lump of butter rolled in flour, shaking your saucepan round till hot and thick, then fill the round with this. Turn them down again and fill the 2 long ones. What remains, save to put into the saucepan. Take a pint of cream, 1/4 pound of butter, the other 4 yolks beat fine, a gill of white wine, a gill of pickled mushrooms, a little beaten mace, and a little nutmeg. Put all into the saucepan to the other ingredients, and stir all well together one way till it is thick and fine. Pour it over all, and garnish with notched lemon. This is a grand dish at a second course, or you may mix it up with red wine and butter, and it will do for a first course. To make a pretty dish of whites of eggs. Take the whites of 12 eggs, beat them up with 4 spoonfuls of rosewater, a little grated lemon peel, a little nutmeg, and sweeten with sugar. Mix them well, boil them in 4 bladders, tie them in the shape of an egg, and boil them hard. They will take half an hour. Lay them in your dish. When cold, mix half a pint of thick cream, a gill of sack, and half the juice of a Seville orange. Mix all together, sweeten with fine sugar, and pour over the eggs. Serve it up for a side dish at supper, or when you please. To dress beans in ragout. You must boil your beans so that the skins will slip off. Take about a quart, season them with pepper, salt and nutmeg, then flour them. Have ready some butter in a stew pan. Throw in your beans, fry them of a fine brown, then drain them from the fat, and lay them in your dish. Have ready 1/4 pound of butter melted, and half a pint of blanched beans boiled, and beat in a mortar with a very little pepper, salt and nutmeg. Then by degrees mix them in the butter, and pour over the other beans. Garnish with a boiled and fried bean, and so on till you fill the rim of your dish. They are very good without frying, and only plain melted butter over them. End of section 23.